So we are very pleased to I have the honor to introduce Jennifer Preston, the Vice President for Journalism at the Knight Foundation. Previously to coming to the Knight Foundation in Miami, Jennifer was an award-winning journalist for the New York Times for almost 2 decades, serving for 2 years as the Times' first social media editor, where she studied the impact of social media on politics, government, business, and real life. Before that, Jennifer edited 4 Sunday weekend sections for the Metropolitan Desk and spent nearly 7 years as a senior editor in the office of the executive editor of the New York Times. Since 2007, Jennifer has taught journalism primarily at Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism and the City University of New York's Graduate School of Journalism. She's the winner of several awards for reporting, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Jennifer Preston to the stage.
Good morning, everyone, and I apologize for being a few minutes late. One of the things that I am still getting used to is Miami traffic. So I'm delighted to be here with all of you today, and I'm delighted that Hacks and Hackers and Rebecca Monson and that Jean Brooks is here, and Mariano just helped inspire my media parties around the world. May this be the second, right, of many to come. Because one of the most important lessons that I learned as a journalist inside the newsroom of the New York Times was that if I wanted to learn more about digital media, if I wanted to learn more about social media, I had to get out of the newsroom of the New York Times. And what I needed to do was to find fellow journalists, technologists, my peers, to come together and to share best practices. And so through Hacks and Hackers in New York and the Online News Association meetups, journalists, students, journalism professors, academics would come together once a month and just share what they learned. So that is just one reason why I'm just so delighted that that Hacks and Hackers is here on campus. And where is Rebecca? Hi, Rebecca. Today, because one of the most powerful ways to learn and to advance innovation in journalism and to advance your own skill set is through community and to learn from each other. So I'm very excited about that. When we talk about social media today, many people focus on the value of social media for audience development, the value of social media for promoting your personal brand, the importance of social media for extending reach of your content. And those are all vital and truly important areas to learn about and focus on. However, as a journalist, what I've always been most excited about social media is using social media for reporting and using social media for storytelling. So I have promised Raul that I would come back later this month and share with all of you, and if there are any other students or professors here, elements from the course that I teach at CUNY in New York about how to use social media for reporting and how to use social media for storytelling. The other really important thing that social media is that we just must not forget as we think about social media for branding and for growing audience is the important role that social media plays around the world in terms of freedom of expression. So it has been an enormously powerful tool, as everyone here in this room knows, during the Arab Spring. And if you have not read Andy Carvin's book, A Distant witness, or if you are a journalism professor and have not assigned it, I would most definitely recommend that you do so. It is Andy Carvin's account of how he navigated Twitter and how he helped amplify voices of many of the people and many of the activists in Egypt at that time. And so freedom of expression, social media for storytelling, and social media for reporting. And since social media is also all about a conversation, I just wanted to take a few minutes of my remarks just to answer any questions that anyone might have. Yes? Yes, and I'm trying really hard not to burst into tears up here. I'm sorry, that's why I'm a little. Yes? All right, I'm going to tell you about David Carr. I'm going to tell you a funny story about David Carr. And anyway, and I apologize. May I have water? So when I was named the first social media editor at the New York Times, I didn't have one of these. Okay? You guys all know this as a smartphone. So when I was named the social media editor, I didn't have a Twitter account. Well, I had a Twitter account, but it was open about 3 days. So why in the hell would the New York Times name this journalist to be social media editor when she didn't have a smartphone, she didn't have a Twitter account? Well, the idea was if there was a veteran journalist who had spent many years as a reporter and many years as an editor who was open to new things, I was always open to trying new things. I cared very much about digital storytelling, and I had worked very closely with our interactive graphics teams to produce some really stunning, important stories using data. That the idea was, well, Jennifer will figure it out, and if I figure it out, then that would also be an effective way to be an evangelist in the newsroom. Because if I could identify the value of social media for Times journalism, then it would be easier, the thinking was, to have me get my colleagues to use Twitter and social media and to make that transition. Well, as you can imagine, there were, at that time, just like a handful of people in the newsroom who were active on social media. Brian Stelter, please follow him now, at Brian Stelter on Twitter, was covering media, and he was an incredibly generous colleague. He was by my side through the entire time helping me, along with Jenny Aitley. I'm sure some people in the room know Jenny. And then the third person was David. And David was really funny, and David was the only other person who was in my age bracket, shall I say, who was experimenting with these tools. And whenever I would want to throw my hands up because Gawker printed yet another story about that new social media editor just sent a tweet, with a broken link, right? I would say, David, I can't do it. And he would say, yes, you can. But then he made one very keen observation. He noticed that I didn't have a smartphone. He noticed that I had what he called a mom phone. I had the little flip phone. And the only thing that I could do with my little mom phone was to text NO, that was what I could manage, to my twins, who were then teenagers, because of course they, figured out the way to get me was to text me and, can I have the car? Can I have $20? And I could say, no. So, in fact, because I was sending out more than one broken link in my tweets. It took me a while to get the bit.ly thing, I got to tell you, that that my son would use his iPhone and then text me whenever I sent out a broken link. And then David Carr said, like, enough, Jennifer, lose the mom phone, get the smartphone. So David was a huge inspiration for not only the young journalists in the New York Times, he was a huge inspiration for all of us of all generations trying to learn how to report and tell stories better. And he helped me enormously in my job as the evangelist for using social media at the Times, because in addition to providing regular encouragement, he wrote in his column, he helped the entire industry. He did this major piece. I remember it ran at, I can't remember, at the end of maybe 2010 or 2009, about why Twitter was important. And when David Carr wrote like 1,000 words on why Twitter was important, that made my job really easy as the social media editor of the New York Times, and made it really easy for other journalists who were struggling and trying to learn how to use these enormously powerful tools. And I was thinking coming up here, okay, what would David want me to say to you guys? And that's why I began with saying, I think social media is fantastic for audience development, although I thought we lost the word audience a while ago, right? Right? We are the audience, right? Like, hello. All right, but in any event. And I know that David would tell me to tell all of you, yeah, the personal branding thing, it's important, it's important. But what's really important is learning how to use these platforms to be a kick-ass reporter and learning how to curate awesome news video from YouTube, from Vimeo, from Vine, from Instagram, and use the incredible content that is being created by everyone who is not a journalist all over the world. And as journalists, our responsibility is to find that content, amplify those voices, and tell really important stories. So thanks very much.